GM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road Show, the daily crypto show where we handle crypto updates with more care than your Aunt Mildred handles her Facebook status. I'm your host, Jay Hamilton, and today we're joined by the one and only Mert, the Solana guy, CEO of Helios Labs, fellow podcaster, and host of Lightspeed, Solana's biggest Twitter personality. This guy might know more about Solana than Anatoly himself. If you guys are an investor in Solana, you absolutely must listen to this episode because Mert's going to get us a behind the scenes look into what's going on with projects on Solana now and those that are coming in the future. We're going to talk about what's happening on Solana right now with Memecoins. Is that a good thing for Solana? Mert's got a really interesting take about why it is a good thing for Solana now and in the long term. We're going to talk about what catalyst Mert sees coming in 2025 and so much more. Before we jump in, it's the Milk Road Awards right now, second annual. It's that time of the year when you get to vote on who you think are the best meme coins of the year, the best blockchain of the year, and other categories. And the best part is anyone who votes gets 1 month free of Milk Road Pro. So click the link in the show notes or hit the QR code on screen right now and go vote for who you think should win this year's Milk Road Awards. Before we jump in to hear from Mert, we need to take a minute to hear from our sponsors who make this show possible. Meanwhile is the world's first licensed and regulated life insurance company built for the Bitcoin economy. They do everything in BTC. You pay in BTC, they pay claims to your family in BTC. You take out policy loans entirely in BTC when you need liquidity. Protect your family from life's uncertainty and a broken financial system. Build intergenerational Bitcoin wealth while the cost of living skyrockets in dollar terms. Plus, get all the tax and legal benefits of life insurance now in Bitcoin. Visit milkroad.com/meanwhile to join the waitlist and get early access to the world's first Bitcoin life insurance. Whether you're bullish or bearish on MicroStrategy, T-Rex ETFs are your gateway to dynamic market plays. Get exclusive access to leveraged exposures with the first 2 times short or 2 times long ETFs designed specifically for MicroStrategy stock. Position yourself with precision. With T-Rex, you gain access to powerful tools for sophisticated investors. Mert, welcome to the Milk Road Show.
Thanks for having me, sir.
Super excited to have you, my man. I got to start with something that is not Solana related, but a little bit funny that I saw you do recently. XRP pumped, and you changed your name on Twitter to XRP Mert, and then realized that you couldn't change it back because Twitter doesn't allow you to change your name very quickly. Doesn't allow you to swap around. So you were kind of stuck with XRP Mert for a little bit. Are you bullish on XRP? Was this a joke? Were you having fun, or were you really leaning into XRP in a meaningful way here?
I was just trolling. XRP passed Solana in market cap. I believe it's still above it, actually. And
That's mental.
people thought I would be mad about this, but I think it's hilarious. And I was tweeting things along the lines of, we don't know how to deal with this mystical force. These guys just came out of nowhere and started aping this coin, and it just kept going up, went up like a few 100% within the month.
I think we went
And
up
I changed my
5x,
name.
5x in a month. It was insane.
That isn't. It also
This is
even
mental.
flipped Tether, and for a brief moment, it might actually still be the case. When you look at the top 3 crypto assets, it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then XRP, and just cinema.
I'm pulling it up. It's 2 billion below Tether right now, so it's right there. But yeah, it is. Cinema is a great way to put it. Okay, well, let's go from XRP to the project that we're here to talk about today. It's just Solana, the chain that is actually has real activity and actually has real stuff going on it. I got to start with. There's no doubt that Solana has won the race to be the fastest chain. It's really focused on that from the beginning. It's also become the most adopted chain in the space in terms of transactions and volume. But there's a lot of talk about that all being 90% meme coins right now. First, I got to ask, is the data correct in saying that?
I would say it's certainly directionally correct. Meme coins are a very large part of certainly the volume, perhaps not the TVL, but certainly the volume and largely behind the economic activity of the chain. And by the way, to perhaps add on to your first comment, I don't actually think we've won to be the fastest
Mm,
chain. I would say never take your eyes off the prize. We're getting there. We're quite fast, scalable, and cheap or efficient. But new people are always coming up, new L2s, new L1s. We got to stay on the ball there.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I wanna touch on that actually a little bit later on the show. But coming back to meme coins being the majority of the activity on Solana right now, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? How do you view that?
It's a question I get asked a lot. It certainly depends on your time horizon and who you are as a user or investor or what your role is. Fundamentally, I don't think of these things as value judgments as good or bad. So, for better or worse, crypto cycles in the past have always been defined by some sort of speculative activity, right? First, it was Bitcoin, then ICOs, then NFTs, and now meme coins. And there are entire chains that are meme coins as well, right? So, it's not necessarily specific to Solana. This cycle, it turned out that the apps that really accelerated meme coins, let's say like the pump dot funds of the world, tend to be on Solana. That's where they just pick to build. And then once that happens, there's a flywheel of other people wanting to tap into that. And so I believe the way I think of it is meme coins are one of crypto's biggest use cases. And it just so happens that Solana is easy to spin up new tokens and trade them and all these things. They're good for the long term health of the chain in the sense that I'm not going to get too technical here, but they do bulletproof or they stress test the network quite a bit in ways you wouldn't expect. So Solana used to have a bunch of outages in 2021, 2022 due to the NFT craze. And that alerted us of a few problems that we fixed. And such that when the meme coins happened this time, we were able to get ahead of most of them. Now we have a bunch of new learnings from the meme coins. And so we're able to keep improving the chain because fundamentally, meme coins are just tokens, and anything that can be tokenized probably will be tokenized, whether that's memes or RWA, stable coins, commodities, whatever that is. And as long as we keep improving the market structure, the fundamental way that money moves and value moves, then I think they're net good.
Mhm. It's a great point that it really does stress test the network and force you to be able to see, can we handle this load? Can we handle all of this activity that's happening, which puts you in a better position to prepare for the future. One thing I want to pause here is I love that you say we when you talk about Solana, and this is such an interesting um, part of crypto, right? Is this community, this feeling of like we're all part of this ecosystem and we're all part of this chain, not only as investors, but also as builders and also as the ideological side. We believe in what we're doing here. But for those of our audience who don't know you, I just want to give you a chance to explain your role a little bit and what you do, because it is interesting. You don't work directly for Solana Labs, so
Mhm.
it's an interesting thing to understand. And you are also, I also need you to sort of explain how you kind of became the Solana guy on Twitter.
Sure. So I used to work at Coinbase, and at Coinbase, I worked on all sorts of chains: Ethereum, Optimism, Polygon, not really Solana, but I had already been interested in Solana from reading the white papers of Solana, Avalanche, Polkadot, all these different chains. And I used to just build things on my own time on the weekends at nighttime. And during the NFT craze, that's where I had the most fun on Solana. So I would build explorers or indexers or data tools to talk about the chain. And while doing that, I noticed that people tended to talk very falsely about how Solana works, and including Solana people themselves, not people who work at Solana, but perhaps people part of the ecosystem, influencers, things like this. And I would basically reply guide them. And I would, I had this knowledge that I built up from building things on it, and I would basically say those. And that while doing those, I noticed a bunch of different problems within the developer space and infrastructure space. So I started Helios. Helios is the #1 developer platform on Solana. RPCs, APIs, indexers, things like this. We work with all the teams you might have heard of, Pump.Fun, Coinbase even. And that's how I got into it. And yeah, I don't work for Solana Labs or Foundation or any official entity. I simply believe in the vision of the chain. I believe there's multiple viable futures for crypto. And I think the Ethereum plus L2 is one option. Cosmos is another. Bitcoin is another. And then Solana takes more of the NASDAQ on chain, where it's a giant unified market. And I think there's room for all of those. So I figured this is the most impactful thing I could work on.
Yeah, and I want to get into a little bit later the Solana versus Ethereum, and even the Solana versus some of the newer chains, Sui, Aptos, that are aiming to be similar to Solana. But before we do that, you mentioned that Helios being the largest developer platform on Solana, you have a behind the scenes look into what's happening with the builders on Solana, the apps, and those that are coming. You even tweeted recently, I can't remember, I think earlier this week, that there's some big projects coming and some big teams that are coming. Can you give us any insight into I don't know if you can speak about specific projects necessarily, but what do you see that's happening behind the scenes right now that's getting you most excited about the future of Solana?
So one example is the Pudgy Penguins coming over to
Mhm.
Solana to drop their token. I knew that one obviously beforehand because in our position, we also help all developers, not just Solana ones, but EVM developers coming over to Solana to support their launches. And I also, from a personal perspective, help connect people to investors, other founders, help with marketing, all sorts of things. And that's the one I'm quite excited by because I am a big fan of Pudgy Penguins. It was actually one of my first NFTs, but now I've been priced out, so to say. They're quite they're quite hefty now. And there are a bunch of other ones in that are probably smaller than Pudgy Penguins, but also quite large that are expanding to Solana. One of the ones that actually launched today is Chainalysis. They actually didn't have Solana support before, and they released it today, which kind of went under the radar because they did it on LinkedIn. But that's a big one. That's a big, actually successful business in crypto. And there's also the institutional side of this, right? The things 5 Solana ETFs filed, Franklin Templetons of the world, Tokenize of the world, which is the asset issue for BlackRock. There are a bunch of teams of both institutional caliber, but also crypto native caliber that we talk with quite frequently. And what I'm impressed by is the rate of growth of how many new people basically knock on our door and we help them build and actually launch on Solana.
It's interesting to hear you say that TradFi is building and looking and using Solana, because I think a lot of people assume that that's where they're mostly on Ethereum, that the TradFi world is adopting Ethereum, and that's why Ethereum has so much TVL, and that's always been Ethereum's focus. So great to hear that that is coming to Solana. Um, I want to you mentioned before that when you started on Twitter and you became this reply guy, that you said that you felt like people were getting a lot of stuff wrong about Solana. What do you think? Anything that you feel like people have wrong about Solana now that people are missing or not seeing?
Well, that would require quite a long podcast episode, but there are the basics. So things like Solana is centralized, something along those lines. And what they mean to say is something like Solana is less decentralized than Ethereum, which is correct. But that doesn't on its own make Solana centralized, right? It's a bit like saying LeBron James is slower than Usain Bolt, therefore LeBron James is not athletic. No, they simply have different abilities depending on the sport or the context. And that's a big one. The Some of the other big ones used to be things like there are no developers on Solana, and actually just now, roughly an hour before I just came on here, Electric Report published their developer report, the annual one, where Solana is the fastest growing #1 in terms of developer growth. And I would say some of them are actually warranted. So things like meme coins being a large part of the activity, that's correct. And perhaps the one I take the most offense to is something like Solana is done here. They've already done all the things, and going forward, there will be faster, cheaper chains and things like this, which implies that we will just stop working and disappear. And that's, of course, not the case. There are a lot of low hanging fruit, but also big updates coming over the next year, few months, next 2 years, next 5 years, even. And so there's a ton of work to be done, and we're just going to keep pushing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great lead into this. Let's go deeper into this conversation of Solana versus these other monolithic chains such as Sui or Aptos, which, I mean, naturally, as a result of crypto being so speculative, sometimes the new kid on the block gets more attention. People get more excited about them. And so Sui and Aptos have gotten a lot, and others have gotten a lot of attention in the past year. Are you worried about these other chains? Just worried might be the wrong word, but what are your thoughts? Or do you just not even think about them at all and you just keep focused on what you're doing, keep building?
I'm excited because, well, first of all, I've invested in Sui startups, for example. I like Sui. And I like chains that go fast. And my favorite part about this is it gives us more room to get better in competition, right? If our moat is that we are going to be the fastest, lowest latency chain for users, there's two options. One is we have no competition and we just tell this to ourselves, or number two, we do have competition and the users and the market themselves tell us this, and we can keep getting better and keep improving. So my approach is let them come, we'll compete and win.
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's true. Competition does really lead to growth, especially with a team like Solana has, where everybody is so dedicated to continuing to code and continuing to build. I listened to the episode you did over at Lightspeed when you had Raj on recently, and it was amazing to hear the way he speaks about the focus on coding and shipping constantly, code and ship and code and ship, and don't get stuck in meetings and don't get stuck in your head thinking about things that don't really matter right now. Just keep pushing on the development side. um, with regards to Ethereum, so uh, Ethereum's moat is really TVL, right? You know, liquidity. They've got the liquidity. Liquidity begets liquidity. I think Ethereum's TVL is around 80 billion now. Solana's TVL around 9 billion. Um, will Solana catch up to Ethereum and TVL? Does it need to? Does it matter? Or is Solana's more a result of the fact that it has as it's the Usain Bolt versus the LeBron James? It's just a different tech aiming to do different things.
Frankly, I don't know. And one of the things that Solana prides itself on, for example, is capital efficiency, not needing as much TVL to get, let's say, similar execution or better prices. That's the whole point of, we like saying, increased bandwidth, reduced latency. And the whole point of the ethos of the chain, which is syncing information as fast as possible around the globe, is that market participants have access to the same information and can get a better DeFi experience for things that actually require it. And what I mean by that is, I always think of this, or I think everybody else thinks of this backwards, which is they start with the blockchain and then they buy coins on the blockchain and then they try to upsell the blockchain to all existing use cases or all possible use cases. And I think that's backwards, because what needs to happen is you need to understand first who you're going after, who's the customer, who's the market, what's the use case. Once you understand that, then you work backwards to the blockchain that actually makes sense for that use case. So for example, if you contrast Game Boy to PlayStation, if I'm releasing, or Tamagotchi, let's say, right? The little Japanese
Oh, I
animal
remember
thing,
Tamagotchi.
right? If you're going after, if that's the game you want to build, you don't need to build it on PS5, right? You need to build it for people who actually care about that use case, in which case they're okay with that small device. Same with Game Boy versus PC gaming, or PC gaming versus Xbox, or even iPhones versus Android. If somebody wants iMessage, you're not going to get them on Android. It just makes no sense. And it's the same with blockchains, which is to say, if you don't need global shared state or very low latency or composability, let's say, you might not need Solana. You might be perfectly fine on either your own L1 or your own L2, maybe even your L3. It doesn't, what matters is, does this technical architecture actually solve the problem that you have as a business coming into crypto? And that's the framing. So, will Solana catch up in TVL? That would depend on who actually stores that TVL and who has that money. If it's older Ethereum whales, then of course they're not going to come over. If it's people who want access to the different DeFi markets on Solana as the chain keeps maturing, then perhaps it might. Perhaps it doesn't need to. So it really depends on that question. And I don't think anybody knows the question of the use cases.
when when you talk about use cases, obviously the you said at the beginning, the biggest use case so far is speculation. That's the biggest use case we've got. Obviously, all of us that are here are we're excited about the speculation and the investment opportunity. It's great that we all can, change our lives and gain wealth. That's an incredible thing. But we also believe in more than that. We also believe in the ideological side of this. We're here because we believe in the future of a better world, which blockchain provides. Any any use cases that you think are coming in 2025 that maybe not necessarily aren't here yet, but that you think could really capture the attention and the narrative in the next year?
One of the big, roughly three. One of the things I've been quite excited by, which does combine speculation, but it's not pure speculation, are things like social fi applications. So you might have seen that Kaido just released a new Yapper leaderboard, and they're basically financializing the social aspect of crypto. Frentech did this, but also there are other social fi teams on Solana and other chains as well that do this. I'm still quite interested in that because it has a chance to break the large network effects of traditional social media like Facebook.
Hmm.
Number
Wait,
two, first.
explain that one a little bit more to us for those who don't know Kaido and what they released with the Yapper.
So it's an analytics platform that gives you AI sentiment on basically mindshare topics, smart followers, insights, things like this on CT characters. Or you might have heard of Fantasy Top, which is a trading card game for CT people as well. It's similar to that, but it is more analytics focused and insight focused. So that's what I mean. And there are similar apps. So, for example, there's time.fun where you can tokenize your time if people want to get time with you or things of that nature.
Okay, so that's number one. Tell us the other use cases that you're excited about.
Number two, which is a bit more Solana specific, but not entirely, is Deepen, of course. So things like Helium, which is decentralized mobile networks, but also things like HiveMapper, which is decentralized mapping. There are also teams working on decentralized CDNs, GPU rendering, energy grids, all sorts of exciting things that mix hard tech with real world usage and assets and crypto's payment scale. I think those are still the most interesting types of use cases to me. And number three is just the basics, payments and stable coins. For example, I live in Dubai now, and what I didn't know is you can pay your utility bills, your electric or your mobile bills with crypto. You can pay with USDC on Solana. So as that gets more prevalent, and you can see this with things like Bridge getting acquired by Stripe for over $1 billion, I would expect payments, especially stablecoin payments, to keep being more prevalent all over the world. And it's just a much better way of doing payments and commerce.
Yeah, stable coins feels like I mean, we've talked about a ton on the show. It's like the it's not the hottest girl at the party, but it's the girl that's gonna have the best career, you know? It's like the girl, she's not the hottest girl in high school, you know, but like you're like, yeah, you know what? I bet you she's gonna go the furthest and she's gonna make it. She's not peaking right now. She's going the distance, you know?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Uh, do you hate Ethereum?
No, I would say, and in fact, I've invested in Ethereum L2s and other Ethereum teams. I certainly don't hate Ethereum. I definitely strongly dislike certain proponents of the Ethereum social complex where they tend to make up information about Solana that they don't understand. And I find myself in a position of having to defend Solana quite often. That being said, I'm not entirely innocent. Certainly, everybody on Twitter gets like this at times. But I do like to think, at least, I provide a good amount of technical backing to all the arguments I provide. Not always. Sometimes I just shitpost, but I don't hate Ethereum. Greatly respect Vitalik and Dankrad and some other teams like or people like Georgios from Paradigm or formerly Paradigm. And again, I invest in Ethereum teams. It just turns out that some people within Ethereum I really don't like.
Mhm. Yeah, and let's be real. If you were the nice guy on Twitter, it doesn't get you anywhere, you know? Nobody likes the nice guy. Nobody wants to hear the nice guy talk. Everybody wants to hear the controversy. They want to hear the edge. And you're not afraid to live on that edge, which is, you know, it's a real value that you have provided to Solana as being this voice for them, this megaphone for them. I mean, only on Solana, as far as I know, like that idea came from you, or maybe you were the one that really cemented it by being the one that talked about it the most. Like that's incredible to have basically a fan. And I know you have incentive. Obviously, you work within the ecosystem, and your company operates based on the ecosystem success. But how much do you think that your tweets and your role on Twitter has impacted Solana's growth?
That's probably for other people to tell me. I can sort of guess. I mean, with Helios, I can for sure definitively say we made a big impact on onboarding developers and getting them to succeed. In terms of Twitter, certainly a fair chunk of people have heard of Solana due to Twitter and my tweets. I do like helping with the marketing things, such as Only Possible on Solana, which, yeah, that one was fun. Or increased bandwidth, reduced latency, IBRL. It's on SolanaRoadmap.com at this point. I deployed it
Mhm.
there. And so I don't know. Perhaps other people can tell me. Just got to try my best and see what happens.
Final question before we let you go, Mert. When you zoom out and you look at where we are in this cycle and the current, the pump that we've had post election, what are your thoughts on the next year for 2025?
Well, certainly a more clear regulatory environment would be very useful for everyone. One thing I'll say about that is the people who generate interest around crypto or hype or tokens, anything really, are fundamentally going to be the new startups and founders that building crypto. And there will probably be somewhat of a lag until the regulations become more clear and then them becoming more clear and then new teams hearing of this and then building things with that framework. That might take the entire next year.
Mm,
Or if Trump YOLOs this and just jeets, it might take much shorter. So that part I can't predict, but my time horizon is generally whenever I invest is always on at least 5 to 10 years. And so then I would look at, okay, what chains are going to be around and have a viable path forward. And Solana and Ethereum both fit that bill. So does Bitcoin. And perhaps one or two new L1s could as well. In terms of L2s, It's unclear to me based on how their token models will work. For example, will that be Ethereum that gets you access to the L2s, or will you actually want to buy the L2 token itself? So that part I'm not clear on.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment that we're all still wondering and trying to figure out. Mert, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your time. Everybody listening in, if you don't follow Mert on Twitter, you absolutely should. A, for the laughs, and B, because as we've said today, is great at keeping everyone up to date on what's going on in Solana and giving you the straight talk. No, all business. All business with a lot of fun and a lot of trolling in between. Mert, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Have a wicked awesome day, everybody. Thanks for listening in. As always, if you liked today's episode, please hit subscribe and make sure you follow us so you don't miss out on the next one. There's also a link in the description to our free 5-minute daily newsletter where we simplify crypto for you while making you laugh. And if you're willing to step up your crypto investing game, we're going to also leave a link for Milk Road Pro. You get access to our portfolio where you can see exactly what we are buying. This is your #1 resource to help you invest successfully in crypto. One final note, this show is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Investing in crypto or any asset is risky, and you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks so much for listening in, my friends. Have a wicked awesome day.